In this video, we'll solve Reading Academic Test 3, Passage 2 from Cambridge IELTS Book 19. The heading of the passage is The Global Importance of Wetlands. Wetlands are water-covered lands that support plants and wildlife. Sometimes you'll see a small star called an asterisk next to a word in the passage. At the bottom of the passage, the word is explained. In this passage, there are two such words. These definitions are only to help you understand the word in the text. There will never be any questions based on these definitions. There are three question types: matching information, that is which paragraph contains the information; gap fill; and matching features questions. We'll do matching information last because the other two question types are usually easier to locate in the passage. So we are starting with gap fill or sentence completion questions. These questions follow the same order as the information in the text. To solve these questions, we look for location keywords, find them in the passage, then read the question carefully, read the relevant part of the passage closely to figure out the answer. There are no capitalized words in any of these questions, but one word that stands out is peatlands. This word is there in all the questions and it is an uncommon word. So first, I'll see if it is mentioned in a specific part of the passage. Peat is easier to locate because of this asterisk. So peat is mentioned in the first paragraph. But peatlands is mentioned in paragraph D, and these dashes tell me that this is the definition of peatlands. Peatlands are wetlands with waterlogged organic soil layer. A quick scan through the passage tells me that peatlands are mentioned only in paragraphs D and E. So I expect answers to all the gap fill questions from these two paragraphs. Let's start with the 18th question now. Peatlands which have been drained begin to release something instead of storing it. What the question means is, when water is drained or removed from peatlands, they release something and they do not store this something. We have to find what the something is which is released but not stored. In paragraph D, peatlands are explained in this sentence. After this, it is mentioned that peatlands are drained. The word emitters is there. Emit means to release something. So emitters are things that release something. So we'll focus on this part of the paragraph. When peatlands are drained and used for cultivation, they become carbon emitters. That is, they emit or release carbon instead of carbon stores. So they do not store carbon, they emit or release carbon. The answer to the 18th question is carbon. The 19th question mentions the word clear, and the answer to the 19th question should be before the mention of oil palm plantations. This is where we found the answer to the 18th question in paragraph D. Clearance of peatlands is mentioned after this. So we'll focus on this part of the paragraph. The question means that once or after peatland areas are cleared, that is, after trees and plants have been removed from that area, something is more likely to occur. That is, the probability of something happening increases. What is this something? Here it says the clearance of peatlands increases the risk of forest fires. So once peatlands are cleared of plants and trees, fires are more likely to occur or there is an increased risk of fires. There are two possible answers for the 19th question: fires and forest fires. But the instructions above the questions say one word only. So forest fires would be incorrect. Fires is the only correct answer. The 20th question mentions oil palm plantations. Let's look at the passage. This is where we found the answer to the 19th question. Oil palm is mentioned at the end of this paragraph. It is also mentioned in the next paragraph. We could try looking both in paragraphs D and E, but the next question, the 21st question, mentions drained and logging companies. These are mentioned at the beginning of paragraph E, which means the answers to the 20th question should be from paragraph D. To make way for means to remove something to make space for something else. Here the question says that peatland forests are cleared or plants and trees are removed from these forests to make space for oil palm plantations. Plantations are large farms where a single type of crop is grown. When this is done, this destroys the something of the local environment. This is where we found the answer to the previous question. This sentence says, we are seeing huge peatland forests with extremely high biodiversity value being lost for oil palm revenues. Revenue means the money or profit earned from a business. Biodiversity means variety of plants and animals in an area. This sentence does not mention clearing of peatlands directly, but it mentions peatland forests being lost, which means they are cleared. And this sentence is also connected to the previous sentence, which mentions clearance of peatlands. So peatland forests are cleared to make way for oil palm plantations. Because of this, biodiversity of the forests is being lost or is being destroyed. The answer to the 20th question is biodiversity. Moving on to the 21st question. The question mentions water being drained out of peatlands and something about logging companies. These are mentioned at the beginning of paragraph E. The question means that water is drained or removed out of peatlands through something. Through means what is the path of the water. For example, we can say that water is removed through pipes. And this something is created by or made by logging companies. In the passage it says, the logging companies arrive to clear trees. They dig ditches. They are the logging companies. Dig means they create. So logging companies create or dig ditches. Ditches are long narrow holes or pits. These ditches are made to enter peat swamps. Swamps is another name for a wetland. So peat swamp means peat lands. The logging companies enter the peat lands through these ditches using boats, and from these ditches they also take out the logs. Logs are the cut tree trunks. These are then used to drain water. These here refers to the ditches. The ditches are after this used to remove water out of peatlands. So what is explained here is that logging companies come, they clear trees. The logging companies come through the ditches that they have dug or that they have created. From these ditches, they come in through boats, they remove logs from this, and later water is also removed from the same ditches. So, water is drained out using ditches. In the passage, first ditches are mentioned, later they are referred to by the same way and these. The answer to the 21st question is ditches. Moving on to the 22nd question. This question also talks about draining of peatlands, but flooding and land loss are mentioned in this question, which are the keywords we can keep in mind when looking for the location of the answer. This is where we found the answer to the previous question. Flooded is mentioned later in the same paragraph. Let's understand the question. Leads to means results in something. The question means that peatlands are drained or water is removed from them. This leads to something. Whatever this something is a serious problem. So this is something bad. And this serious problem can cause flooding and land loss. Let's understand what the paragraph says. This says once water has been drained away, bacteria etc. break down carbon into CO2 and methane. This is not part of our question. Our question talks about something that leads to flooding. Meanwhile means at the same time. While this is happening because of draining of water, something else is also happening. The remainder of the solid matter starts to move downwards in a process known as subsidence. Subsidence is explained at the bottom, which is sinking of the earth's surface. So subsidence means the earth's surface sinks. A hollow is formed. So after draining of water, two things happen. The first is the bacteria breaking down carbon. The second thing is subsidence. Then it says, this is one of the most alarming consequences of peatland. Alarming consequences means something that leads to something else. So draining leads to subsidence, which is a serious problem, which is a serious consequence. And after a few decades, after 50 years, there is flooding and 40% of land mass is lost. This is land loss. So the information that is there in one sentence in the question is spread over 3 or 4 sentences in the passage. I have marked parts of it in different colors so that you are able to understand which part of the question refers to which part of the passage. So subsidence is mentioned once. After this refers to subsidence and it also refers to subsidence. The answer to the 22nd question is subsidence. With this, we are done with all the gap fill questions. All the answers are on the screen. What is noteworthy is that the answers are in order. The answers are very close by. All the answers are from 2 paragraphs. Throughout, it helped that we looked for some keywords from the question to locate the answers. There are no capitalized words or numbers in these questions to help us locate answers quickly, but words like peatland, release, cleared, oil palm, and logging companies help us find the tentative location of answers, which help us save time and effort. Let's move on to the next set of questions, the matching features questions. In these questions, you're given a list of statements and a list of names is given. we have to match the names to the statements. In this case, we have the names of some experts. We have to figure out which statement matches to which expert. To solve these questions, what I do is I locate all the names in the passage. I see where they are mentioned, in which paragraphs, and how often they are mentioned. Because the names are capitalized, they are easy to locate. After I have done that, I read through all of these statements, understand them, and I start looking for the answers from the names which are mentioned the least number of times, because they have the least amount of content from which we have to search for the answer. In this case, these are the 4 names we have. The first name is mentioned in 3 different paragraphs. The third name is also mentioned in a lot of places. The fourth name and the second name mentioned in just 1 paragraph each. So when looking for answers, I'll first read through what is written about these 2 experts. Another important tip here is that because we are connecting names of people to certain statements, we focus more on the statements in quotes. That is, we focus on what the people have directly said. Sometimes the quotes may not be there, but it would be mentioned that the person has said this thing. These are the parts we focus on more. Let's start. First, we go through all the statements. The parts of the statements that we keep in mind are in bold on your screen. The 23rd question says, communities must be included in discussions about the future of the areas. Communities living somewhere are the people living in an area. So the local people are the communities. And what this is saying is that these people should be included in the decision about what should happen in future in these areas. Official policies towards wetlands vary from one nation to the next. Official policies means the policies of the government. So from one country to another, the policies are different. People cause harm to wetlands without having any intention to do so. That is, people do harm the wetlands, but they do not do it on purpose. They do not want to harm the wetlands. Initiatives to reverse environmental damage need not be complex. Complex means something which is very complicated, which is very confusing. Initiatives means any plans or actions that are taken. So the 26th question is saying that things that we do to reverse environmental change do not have to be very complicated things, very difficult things. Because this name is mentioned only in 1 paragraph, this is the name we'll focus on first. In this paragraph, there is some information which is in direct quotes. These are the things that this person has said. These are the things that we focus on. This says, wetlands are one of the key tools mitigating climate change across the planet. Mitigating means reducing. Climate change refers to environmental issues. So this sentence is saying that by using wetlands, we can reduce environmental damage. Later it says, it can be as simple as planting a few trees. Simple is the opposite of complex. So what is simple is not complex. So the mitigating of climate change or reversing of environmental damage can be very simple. We can only plant a few trees. Then later it says, implementing or putting into plan climate change projects isn't so much about money. So we may not need to spend a lot of money. We may not need to do very complicated, complex things. we can do very simple things. So the answer to the 23rd question is B, because this person has said that the projects or initiatives that are taken to reverse environmental damage or to mitigate climate change can be as simple as planting trees, so they need not be complex. So the answer to the 26th question is B. After this, we will read about D. Dave Tickner, because this person is also mentioned only in one paragraph. In paragraph F, there is a lot of information in direct quotes. That is, all of this is what this person has said. And some part is also mentioned as Dave Tickner believes. So this also means this is something that he has directly said, or this is something that he believes in. Here, first it mentions the harmful impact of industries on wetlands. Then there are details about fertilizers, over extraction of water, etc. None of this is mentioned in any of our questions. But then it says Tickner does not blame anyone for deliberate damage. Damage means harm, deliberate means intentional. So Tickner is saying that nobody is harming wetlands on purpose. Then he says, I have worked on wetland issues for 20 years and have never met anybody who wanted to damage a wetland. Wanted to damage again means doing something with an intention of hurting it. And here it says, it isn't something that people set out to do. Set out to do something means to plan to do something. So, in many different ways, the same thing is repeated in the paragraph, that people do harm wetlands, whether it is with industries, over extraction of water, etc. But they do it without intention. They do it without wanting to deliberately damage or setting out to damage. So these three have a similar meaning, which means doing something on purpose. Tickner is saying that people cause harm to wetlands without any intention. So the answer to the 25th question is D. Dave Tickner. Next, we will look at Matthew McCartney. This person is mentioned in paragraphs B, G, and H. So we'll take a look at all of these. All the parts of these paragraphs which are direct quotes by Dr. Matthew McCartney or which mention something this person believes in are in green on your screen. Let's go through these. In paragraph B, he says that large number of people are dependent on wetland agriculture. The large number of people may seem to refer to the communities, but these things are not mentioned in any of the statements that we have in the question. In paragraph H, it says that McCartney is cautiously optimistic. That is, he is hopeful but carefully hopeful, not too hopeful. He says awareness is growing. There is still degradation or damage, but things are slowly changing. But the important paragraph where the main things are mentioned, which connect to one of the statements, is in paragraph G. Sustainability means using resources in a way that they last for a long time. McCartney says it is essential that local people or the communities living in that area are involved or are included in planning and decision making in the discussions regarding the wetlands. Communities means local people, Planning and decision making is discussions. So the answer to the 23rd question is A. Finally, we look for what Marcel Silvius has said. He is mentioned in 4 paragraphs. Let's look through these. Paragraph D mentions that a lot of peatland forests are being lost. Paragraph E mentions what happens when water is drained out of peatlands. We have already gone through these paragraphs while attempting the gap fill questions. Paragraph G is about earning money from wetlands. Local people are mentioned here, which could confuse us with the communities mentioned in question 23. However, here it is not about earning money, it is about discussing about future. This person is talking about ways to earn money for local people. That is not what is mentioned in the statement. Paragraph H says different governments, that is, the officials, have different attitudes. That is, they have different policies. Some countries or some nations place a high priority, that is, they consider wetlands to be important, while others, that is, other nations, deny the issue. They don't even accept that this is a problem. So, official policies vary from one nation to the next. Yes, some nations have high priority, other nations deny the issue. So, the answer to the 24th question is C. On your screen are the answers to all the 4 questions with the phrases that helped us find the answers in bold. An important thing to note here is that very often in this question type, this instruction is included. You may use any letter more than once. However, here it was not included. That means we have 4 questions and 4 letters to choose from. Once we were sure about 3 answers, the 4th one would have been obvious without even searching for it. Moving on to the next set of questions, which is the matching information questions, or which paragraph contains the information questions. In these questions, each question has some information and we have to find out in which paragraph that information is there in the passage. For this question type, read all the questions, identify the key information. The first 2-3 words of the question tell you what kind of information you're looking for. For example, proportion here could mean a percentage is mentioned or some reference to a part of something is mentioned. After that, we scan the passage for the key information. Almost always, I prefer to do this question type last because it's easier to look for these answers once you are a little familiar with the passage. An important instruction for these questions is you may use any letter more than once. Just as in the previous question type that we did, here also this information is not given, which means we can use each letter only once. No letter will be repeated in these answers. So the first thing we do is we read all the questions. The parts of the questions, which are the keywords, which I'll keep in mind as I scan the passage, are in bold on your screen. Question 14 says, inhabitants or the people who live somewhere should continue to benefit from the place. Question 15 says that some part of or some proportion of wetlands have already been lost. Question 16 is about people beginning to appreciate the value of wetlands or people now understanding why wetlands are important. And question 17 mentions the cultural significance or cultural importance of wetlands. There are many different ways by which we can look for these answers. The first thing is we look for any clear hints that may be there in the question. Here it says proportion. So I scanned the passage looking for mention of any percentage, any number. I couldn't find it. But sometimes this helps. Another way is sometimes we are able to use the information we have come across when solving previous questions. This did help a little because I've already gone through paragraph G while looking for another answer, and it mentioned something about income for local people. So, income could be benefit. And if these two don't give us any answers, we look at the beginning of each paragraph and we focus on the parts of the passage from which we have not found any answer yet. These are the first sentences of all the paragraphs. We go through these sentences looking for any hints of what is there in the questions. Here, the first sentence of paragraph G says, Sylvius also acknowledges the importance of income generation. Income generation can refer to the benefit that the inhabitants can get. Also, paragraph F says something about fortunes of wetlands and long term value of wetlands. So, the first sentences of both paragraph G and H seem to refer to some benefit. Let's take a look at these two paragraphs. The meanings of some of the words from the paragraphs are on your screen. Paragraph 8 says that the fortunes or the importance of wetlands would be improved if governments recognized the long term value of wetlands. Then it goes on to say something about awareness of importance of wetlands is growing. All of this is about what governments should do and also about people becoming aware that wetlands are important. This has no mention of inhabitants, of people who live in wetland regions. Paragraph G says there is a need to provide an income for local people. The question says there is a need to ensure that the inhabitants or the local people of wetland regions continue to benefit or earn an income from the wetland regions. Later, it also says that people will only protect wetlands if they, the people, value and profit from them. So, valuing and profiting from something is benefiting from something. Paragraph G clearly talks about what is mentioned in the 14th question. The answer to the 14th question is G. Moving on to the 15th question. The 15th question says the proportion of wetlands which have already been lost. So, we are talking about what percentage of wetlands has been destroyed. The beginning sentences of some paragraphs mention the environmental purpose of wetlands or the damage that is caused to wetlands. But this required a slightly closer scanning of the passage. Also, I did focus on paragraph A because I have already done most of the questions and I have not found any answer from paragraph A till now. The word lost and later the word lose are mentioned in paragraphs D and E. In paragraph D, it says that peatland forests, which are the wetlands, are being lost. But this does not mention any percentage of how much of these forests are lost. The same paragraph mentions 6%, but this is about carbon emissions, not about the percentage of wetlands or percentage of forests lost. Paragraph E says we will lose 40% of their land mass. This landmass is actually referring to landmass of some places, not about wetlands. But even without going into these details, we can see that this is about what will happen in the future, whereas the question is about what has already happened. Paragraph A says half of world's wetlands have disappeared, which means the proportion is half. Disappeared means lost. The answer is very clearly from paragraph A. The answer to the 15th question is A. The 16th question says, reference to the idea that people are beginning to appreciate the value of wetlands. We have come across the mention of people in some questions that we have already solved. The 23rd question specifically talked about communities living in wetland regions or local people of wetlands. So, people are mentioned in more than one paragraph of this passage. And even the first sentences of some paragraphs talk about the benefits of wetlands. Paragraph B says the fertile ecosystems of wetlands have played an important part. This is about importance or value of wetlands, but this is about the past. We are looking for something which is happening now and which is starting to happen now. Paragraph G says that people will only protect wetlands if they value and profit from them. This says people will protect wetlands if something happens. We are looking for something that has already started to happen. That is mentioned in paragraph H. It says here, awareness of the importance of wetlands is growing. Awareness of the importance means appreciation. So, what this is saying is that the appreciation of wetlands is growing. And then this person says, my impression is that things are slowly changing. So, slowly people are becoming more aware of the importance of wetlands and they are beginning to value wetlands. An important thing here is that this sentence of the passage is in passive voice. If we try to write this in active voice, we will write it as people are becoming more aware of the importance of wetlands, which connects it more clearly with the given question. So the answer to the 16th question is H. The 17th question says, mention of the cultural significance of wetlands. Cultural significance means importance of something in the culture, tradition, or the way of life of a place. This is only mentioned in paragraph B. The word culture is not directly mentioned, but religious, historical, and archaeological value is mentioned. It is also mentioned that wetlands have played an important part in human development. All of this together means that wetlands are and have been culturally significant. The answer to the 17th question is B. With this, we are done with all the questions of this passage. The answers to all the matching information questions are on your screen. The parts of the passage which helped us find the answers are highlighted on the screen. I'll continue solving the next passage of this test in the next video. See you then. I hope this helped you. All the very best.